How's everybody doing? Thanks for having us.
We had an over-under, like how long was it going to take for somebody to say that?
I know, they went right for the wrong movie. But it's good, it's a good movie.
But thank you guys for coming. I figure what we'll do is we'll start taking some questions from you guys, and we'll go from there. So let's see. There we have somebody with the flag there. Line up behind her, please. There's another one. There he comes. There's my friend Don with the other flag. Line up there and there, and we'll take questions and we'll get this thing started.
You're trying to kill us with this table.
We're ready for the first question.
First question.
Hi, Ralph Maggio. My name's Chris.
Hey.
I love the movies. My question to you is, can you still do the crane kick? And if you can, will you please do it for us?
Okay, now here's how I'm going to handle this. Can I still do the crane kick? It's been a long time, first of all. Two, I did the crane kick after the original movie, and it certainly became what it is today. And I did it once since the shooting of the film in my video for Funny or Die called Wax On, F Off. I've asked to do the crane kick thousands of times. The only time I've ever done it, and it's just out of, otherwise I'd be doing it every day of my life and slipping a disc, is for the military, on military bases, when the troops ask me to do it. I've done it with the troops before, and so it's no diss to anybody, because it's only, I'll only disappoint the legacy of what it was when I was young enough to do it right. That I appreciate you asking, but I will critique yours any day of the week. Thanks. I hope that was a good answer of tap dancing at it. But cool, thanks for that.
Hey Ralph, harder training to do Karate Kid or Dancing with the Stars?
Good question. He asked tougher training, Karate Kid or Dancing with the Stars. By far more Dancing with the Stars was difficult, mainly because there's like 25 years difference. Anyone under 40 doing that show is cheating, that's what I say. And plus it's all different types of dances, and they're all different ways of moving your body and shifting your weight in different timings, where with the martial arts I was able to, they were able to design a simple way of me looking decent enough that that everyone bought it. But Dancing with the Stars was tougher, and I think maybe just because of the chronological age, for sure. Good question.
Let's see, over to you.
This is actually for you both. Before my spinal injury, I was a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo and instructor. And this is because in 1984, I watched the Karate Kid, solely because of it. Are you guys surprised at just how many martial artists that back then you still influence and today?
Well, I was at a tournament one day, and these grandmasters came up to me, and they all had gray beards, and they all bowed, and they said, "You don't know what you've done for martial arts." And this was, I guess, about 1997 or something like that. And then another fellow came, and it humbled me. And another fellow came up who was 5-time world champion kickboxer, and 2 or 3 other world champions came up, and they said the same thing. But when a boy came up and said, "I was 10 years old when I saw the Karate Kid, and now I own 30 dojos," I started to cry. I just started to cry, because you realize how much a movie like this, an iconic movie like this, means to people. And only in the 30th year we're hearing all the stories, because we've been doing a couple of shows, how much this movie meant to so many people in all different ways from one generation to another. It's uncanny. So yes, the answer to the question is, I now know how much this meant to not only the other people who are not in martial arts, but those who are in martial arts.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's well said, Marty. I think that you never know when you set out to do anything as an actor that it would touch people on levels that beyond your imagination. And certainly from the martial arts aspect, the amount of influence it's had on people's lives, and not just from the standpoint of the part of it. But the emotional and the philosophical side of Asian philosophy and martial arts, it's nice to see that kind of connection, and it's something I never expected. As far as the person you mentioned that was 10 years old, saw the movie, and now owns 30. So I would have cried also that I didn't have a piece of that business. No, I'm joking. I had to say. Next question.
First, I just want to thank you both for being here, being great guests, and sweetening the pot considerably for all of us here this year. Growing up, I'm sure a lot of us geeks can relate to, school was not a fun time for me, and that film in particular, the first two, helped me through a lot. Recently showed the first two to my 8-year-old son, and he loved them both. It doesn't have to be Pixar if it's good storytelling. My question was, you mentioned to me that you have a son now, Ralph, and his name is also Daniel, and my name is Daniel, and did you experience any bullying yourself, or was that cathartic for you, or did you use it to help him as it helped me? And you guys are my last panel of DragonCon. Ralph and I was wondering if I could have your nameplate.
I have no problem with that. You have to fight those 600 others. Certainly, by all means, it's not mine, and it's yours. And if you could get to it and get it. I don't have a pen, but if you get a pen.
Oh, someone got one.
This is a real Daniel song together. Dan, IDL, just checking.
If this guy makes it back to his seat without having his leg swept,
in answer to the question, if I can remember it from back then, yes, this film certainly had a great deal of influence on kids growing up and being bullied in it. And it was a different time then, and bullying is far more complex now because of technology. It's so covert. It's not only the kid getting picked on in school that's pushed into his locker or a bunch of money is stolen. It's much deeper than that because anyone could bully through social media, through texting, and so I think the world has made it easier to bully and more to be faceless and cowardly. But that being said, we all growing up have some element. Bullying has touched us in some way. I've had some stories when I was a kid as well. I was never the biggest or the strongest by any stretch. I'm still waiting for my shoulders. They're on back order. But I was pushed around a little bit, and I had a pretty good family foundation and was able to talk to my parents about it, and it didn't last for very long, so I never had a bad case of that. And my son had some moments, and my daughter as well. You just try to support. As a parent, try to support your child and count on the people that are close around you, family and friends, to get through the difficult time, that transitional time, and certainly in middle school and to early high school is when it's really evident. But I think the Robert Mark Kamen, who wrote The Karate Kid, Mark and I talk about it all the time. And, it starts with the written word, and that film really was extremely relatable because we all felt like Daniel Russo at some point. He was the every kid next door that represented a little bit of all of us. And through that film has inspired and been not a sounding board, but a place for kids that felt like the outsiders, yes, pun intended, felt like the kid that was picked on in some way, be it a girl or a boy. They found inspiration to carry on and being part of something, a movie that actually is able to do that is quite fascinating and rewarding to the 30 years later living witness to this room. It's really, it's humbling to be a part of. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's a little bit of my perspective.
There's, just to add to that, you know, everyone would identify with our movie, whether you identify it because it's a romance that didn't work out for you as a teenager, or you were bullied, or you were a fish out of water in some sort of situation. Bullying, I travel around to different cities and do work with a psychologist at pretty much junior highs. And finding a solution to bullying, I mean, there's been bullying ever since Rome.
Exactly.
You know, ever since, you know, Johnny Lawrence bullied me, and, you know, he bullied me in the office, but no one knows that. But the bottom line is, it's a tough solution, and everybody tries as much as you can: cyberbullying, physical bullying, sexual bullying, verbal bullying. But I feel that the greatest answer, the best answer, is support of the parents in this kind of situation, because I don't think there's truly a great solution to answer the problem of being bullied by someone. I was bullied by someone back in Brooklyn. You know, I remember in the 7th grade, and he didn't know I was going to become John Cleese. You know, that's how I feel. You know.
Hi, I'm Jesse. What was your favorite scene to film and why?
Favorite scene to film and why?
Oh, my favorite scene. Well, you know, I really enjoyed in the dojo, marching up and down the aisles, mercies for the weak here and on the streets. Thank you, thank you. I remember it being the audition scene as well, but the bottom line is that it just takes you into this place of the character. You start off with mercies for the weak, and it just takes you, it doesn't matter what else you have to say, even if you have to do the Gettysburg Address or you do something from Shakespeare, it wouldn't matter. You were so in the character based on the wonderful writing of Robert King. And I thoroughly believe that without, as Ralph said, the written word, none of our characters would have been highly either identifiable to you all or to be as articulate as we were and definitive as we were as characters in the movie. Everyone in that picture was an everyman. Every one of us was an everyman, totally identifiable to the public. And the star of that movie, as far as I'm concerned, is not Jody Weintraub, who had the idea from an article about bullying, or John Avildsen, or Ralph, but was Robert Cameron, our writer. So, Mercies for the Weak, that scene, to me, was the definitive scene of the character. It's the kind of scene that you would like to have first when you're shooting the movie. I don't remember if it was first or not, but once it's there, it's embedded in your brain as an actor, and then you can flow through the whole movie, and you'll always be in continuity emotionally.
One of I have a handful of scenes and moments that are, my favorites or that have the most profound effect on me. I would guess that if I would choose two scenes and then maybe one or two moments, two scenes, I guess the first scene was when after Daniel gets all beat up by the skeletons after that classic, Miyagi comes to save the day, and this sort of discovery of who Miyagi is for Daniel. It's a really long scene, all done in basically one shot, and it ends with the JCPenney 398 line where you have a black belt or whatever it was. I just think that's a beautiful scene of discovery that sort of forges where the movie's going to go and the relationship, that surrogate father-son relationship. Another scene is the payoff scene when he's like, show me wax on, show me paint the fence, and the kid realizes everything he's been doing and what it's led to, all those chores that have led to so both of the scenes are a form of discovery, which is a big part of who Daniel LaRusso was as he came of age. Moments for me, my favorite transition in the film is after the Miyagi drunk scene, beautiful scene played by the late, great Pat Morita. We should give it up for him. the scene when Daniel puts him to sleep and reads about Miyagi's backstory, and then goes off and he bows to his master and goes off to train himself with this beautiful classical music composed by Bill Conti is my favorite transition in the film. And my favorite single moment in the film, just for its purity and its pure honesty, is the line when I say, "You're the best friend I ever had," when he gives me the car. I just think that's just from the aspect of it being everything in one line for what that kid went through and what we all go through in that. But there's a zillion of them. All the Cobra Kais have all the great lines. Sweet leg, put him in a body bag. I'll get him a body bag. I don't even know which one it is, but all I know is I didn't have the line. Great stuff. Thanks.
Hey there, I'm a big fan. This is a great come through to see y'all. One thing that bothered me about the movies, though, is that none of the female leads last more than one movie. They mysteriously disappear at the beginning of the next movie. What's up with that?
I'm going to take that one. That's a great. It's recognized, and I just spoke about that actually today at the table. Someone came up to me and asked about Elizabeth Shue and why she wasn't in the next picture. I'm going to put the blame to all this, because he's not here to defend himself, on a very competent, great, and iconic producer, Jerry Weintraub, and probably a little bit on the studio as well. I think at the end of the day, the business side of show business, when decided that who needed to be in what sequels, and I think Elizabeth Shue's character should have certainly been in the second film, even if it was a short-lived relationship. I thought it was kind of cheap, and that's exactly where it comes from, that she was written off in one line. I thought it was a beautiful storyline with Tamla and Tamita and that sort of culture, the Asian culture and American culture in another land, and I thought that was a sweet love story. But yes, the fact that each one disappeared with each next film, I think was the business taking over from the creative part. Because I think for the fans, it should have been, for the same case that my mom, played by Randy Heller in the original film, I fought and fought and fought just to get her to be back in one scene in the third picture. I didn't know why she needed to disappear. And I think at the end of the day, it was just business. They're like, we got the old man, we got the kid, we got the bad guy. That's all we need. And I think the movie does a disservice to some of those supporting characters who really enriched, Randy Heller's role as Daniel LaRusso's mother was a very relatable character, as was the Elizabeth Shue character, and some others. But they're not here to fight with me, so I got to say all that.
My question is for both of you. Instead of a remake of Karate Kid, if you had both been approached about a continuation with Daniel becoming a mentor character and John Kreese returning in a villain role or in some other capacity with an excellent script, would either of you or both of you have been interested in returning to those characters?
I think, and I'll let Marty take this question as well. I think the fact that you said with an excellent script or a great script, that's really what it hinges on. And but yes, there's been a lot of pitches like, how about you have a kid who's in trouble, you become the Miyagi to your own kid. I hear that every day. 7-Eleven, Starbucks, I got it. This is the one. And or the Cobra Kai do this and this happens and and it's great because everyone has passion about these characters and wanting to see that. So I would, with an excellent script, as you say, if it made sense, I think 10 years ago, I would probably not have entertained it. But at this point, after 30 years seeing a room like this filled and knowing that if someone's able to orchestrate a worthy storyline that's well executed, why not? But I think it's a tall order. But I'm open. And you need the studio behind it. You need the money behind it. If money wasn't involved, we'd be doing whatever we want. It takes a lot.
Well, I think that the most important element, of course, is the written word again. But I remember hearing stories one time. Someone pitched me about you and I having grandchildren, and the grandchildren doing everything that you did, and my grandchild doing everything that I did. and as a sequel, and of course, it's silly. But unquestionably, you know, it is the script, and I remember this happening. I got the TV series and couldn't do Karate Kid 3 and be the character. Terry Silver was a rewrite, and I was to do everything that Terry Silver did. But I couldn't. I got something called Hard Time on Planet Earth, and I just couldn't get out. So I was on the periphery of the movie, and I remember how that element, disenfranchising the villain, was an error, was a problem. Not an error because, you know, this movie still made money and all, but in the concept of Karate Kid, you can't, it's like Star Wars, you can't disenfranchise Darth Vader. You know, you can't bring in somebody else. And unfortunately, in Karate Kid 3, I was just, it was the heartbreaking situation. But that affected the script. And if we had a script where nothing changed except better writing, even, I think I'd sign on. To answer your question, I think it's all in the written word, and would it be innovative? Because we've already done a lot in 3 movies that have answered a lot of emotional questions for a lot of people. So we'd have to. You know.
I thought that Rocky Balboa years later was a good film, as opposed to you know, some of the later Rocky, like 4 or 5s or whatever. Yeah. I thought it was kind of cool for them to scale down and sort of make. It felt a little bit like the original Rocky, directed by the same man who directed the Karate Kid films, at least the 3 that we were involved with. So I think there is a way. I think the fact that they've made a remake of the Karate Kid with, you know, with Will Smith, I shouldn't say that, with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan, that complicates it a bit because there is a young generation that, you know, that goes to that film. You know, that's what they grew up with, even though they see ours, because it only enhances the legacy of what we were able to do. But you know, open to, if something's smart, innovative, like you say, why not if the fans would embrace it? But I think it is a tall order, but we'll see what happens.
But that movie only paid, it never competed with Karate Kid 1, it just paid homage to it. That's all I think.
Yeah, that's good. Even though it's coming through.
Several years ago, the group No More Kings came out with an awesome video, Sweep the Leg. And I was wondering if maybe you could share a little bit about how that project came about and some of the fun you guys had with it, and with that whole reimagined ending where, in fact, Johnny wins instead.
Why don't you take that one, because you were on it before I was.
Yeah, you know, Billy Zabka is a very creative fellow. He's a writer, he's a director, and he does a lot of music videos, and he came up with this idea, and it was so much fun. I mean, it was like a movie. I mean, we had, you know, all kinds of trucks and sound stages, and it was just a gas. And he is just so funny. And I remember coming in, there was that first scene in the video where I shoot the shotgun from the, just to give you an idea of the scope of this, where I shoot from my motorcycle and I shoot the Cobra at the very beginning and the whole thing opens up. I finished a film in Ohio and I flew in and we needed to get the sunset. And this is how elaborate and devoted Billy was to getting the right shot. That when I landed in LAX, at Los Angeles International, they had a private plane waiting for me to take me 2 hours where it would have taken, they didn't trust the traffic, it would have taken 2 hours in a car, and it was rush hour, and they needed the sunset shot. And this is a little music video. So they pick me up, take me in the private plane, I dress when I get off, and they put on all their gear, and we get the shot. And everything in the whole piece was so precise and wonderful. And my experience was, even the screening was like a movie screening. It was, John Avildsen was there, right, you know, with his little camera. As soon as we walk in, John is filming us, you know. And it was just like doing a movie.
We really work, it takes a lot of work, whether you're doing a short content project, short film, or feature film. It just takes a lot of work to put these things together. And Billy's attention to detail for that piece was really admirable. He came to me early on, and I did not sign on to it. I felt that, you know, because I wasn't sure it was going to work, and but I said, but you know, let's keep an open communication. He wanted me to be doing something like waxing a car, go figure. But he explained the whole thing. So on that, I passed on the project at that point, but we maintained contact on it. And when he showed me the rough cut of what he did, and that he got, you know, he had the ability through Columbia Pictures to use, you know, to use the emblems and all that stuff, because this Cobra Kai stuff is owned by, you know, the movie studio. So he got the blessing from the studio and everyone involved, and the record company that had the song, and then he sent me a rough cut. As soon as he sent me a rough cut, and I just said, okay, let's come up with some button on the end that I could appear in, that it would fit, and we did, and I'm proud that I got involved with it, and I'm proud of the work he did and everybody else. So it was a lot of fun, and once again, pays homage to the pop culture and the relevance of it that all you folks embrace. It's, you know, it's awesome.
Well said. Well said.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you if you could do that kick that Jaden Smith did at the end of the
Kind of Matrix kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, after the trilogy ended, what I kind of want to know is, did you stay in contact with Pat Morita? What was the relationship there until that?
That's a great question. Yes, Pat and I did stay in contact after the film. I will say this much for him. He was better at it than I was. He would, every couple of, you know, I mean, sometimes there was probably one section where maybe 3 or 4 years went by where we didn't speak, not for any reason, but I'd always get these phone messages, hey, you know, Ralphie, it's Uncle Popsy, call me like at 2 in the morning, what you doing? I hear you had a baby, you know, and I hit him back and we talk about old times we get together. Always a kindred spirit. I mean, there's just a soulful magic in our chemistry that you can search, you can try to create, you can try to buy, and it just doesn't happen if it's not meant to be. So I believe that he and I were just meant to play those roles at that time and space and history. And I got to present him about a year before he passed. I got at Lincoln Center in New York, the Asian American Foundation. I don't know the exact name. It's slipping my mind right now because that happens to me, because I only look young on the outside, people. I got to present the Lifetime Achievement Award to him, and I got to say everything I would want to say. And it was a black tie, 4,000 people in Lincoln Center, or whatever it was, and they just erupted with both of us on stage. And I got to genuinely say everything I wanted to say about him and what he meant to my life and our friendship and such. And I'm glad I got to do that, because when he did pass, and I certainly was at both of his funeral services, I got to say those things, but he got to hear them, and I have great solace in that, because you know, he's a part of my life. Those characters are a part of my legacy, in front of the camera and behind the camera. It's a special relationship. Thanks for asking.
My question is for Mr. Cove. You know, you can't have a great hero without great villains, and there's such a love for the Cobra Kai in the film that people have come up with plausible theories that Daniel's son is actually the villain in the movie.
Good old Barney Stinson on me.
But what I wanted to ask was, because you've played a number of villains in your career, I wanted to find out from you what you bring to a villainous role, what you feel is important when developing a character like that.
Well, I think, you know, a teeth-gritting villain who's always angry is the first thing actors do when they start out in the business. You know, you play a lot of heavies, and it's kind of uninteresting. But when you watch people like Klaus Maria Brandauer in the Bond movies, or you watch Anthony Hopkins, or any of these people where they ooze interest, they ooze emotionality, even though they're negative characters. I think for me, I create the whole back drama, the back life of a character who's a bad guy. You know, and I mean, give you an example. John Kreese. John Kreese's background was, you know, in between the lines. It was never written. John Kreese was always a winner. John Kreese was a karate champion in high school and in college, and then in the Marines, in the Army. And then when he went to Vietnam, he wasn't allowed to win like so many of our soldiers. They weren't allowed to do what they do best. And it was always a political situation. So when he came back, he swore that none of his students or himself would ever lose again, under any circumstances. And that was what I created for John Kreese. And it worked. You know, it really worked. And I think you do Rambo, it's a little different. You know, Rambo is a little different. Then you do I Did White Earp, but kept the costume was a little different because you're playing a real life person. In Blackjack Ketchum, who was an outlaw from the Wild Bunch. So playing a heavy is a lot of fun, but I really like to play the good guy. I really enjoy it. I forgot the line you just said when I took the picture with you. What was that line from Karate Kid 3? Or I say to Terry Silver, I say, no, it wasn't Mamona, I was on the phone. It was something else. Anyway, we always thought of ourselves as two Terminators. You think of another bad guy. Terry Silver was great, Thomas Ian Griffin, and we ranted and raved throughout the set as two Terminators. We kept thinking of ourselves as Arnold, you know. And we had such a good time because, you know, we just had the characters had no morals. You know, they had no scruples. And of course, we didn't have any morals or scruples either. We were so into the character that we just had fun. You can have so much fun being a badass. It's really as much fun as, you know, being the hero, because, you know, the sky's the limit if you just play it right. You know.
Let's do one more here and one more there.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. I have to say, as somebody who's, and I'm pretty sure that maybe there are people in here who agree, I'm sure, you know, watching Karate Kid, I didn't realize just how much it would become a part of my life. My brother and I, actually, the brother that I'm closest in age, we actually became fans of yours as well. So, you know, every time Ralph Macchio was showing up, we're like, we gotta go see that. You know, so my cousin Vinny, you were there. But anyway, the thing that I really loved about Karate Kid was this, especially as a teenager growing up, you know, there's so much stuff going on. There's a lot of emotions, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of different things. And that Karate Kid was sort of like, oh, okay, this is how you deal with this situation. And then there's Cobra Kai, where you've got like a bunch of roided up, angry guys who are just kind of like doing, rah! But when I became an adult, I kind of saw sort of like, well, first of all, I became a little bit more of a fan of Cobra Kai, and I feel kind of guilty about that kind of, because they were kind of badass. But I also think, I'm thinking about you, Marty in particular, sort of like, when people come up to you and talk to you about your role as John Kreese, what do people react to you as sort of like, you know, you bad guy, you know, you taught these kids how to be like this, or were they kind of awed by that, you know, mercy is for the weak part, you know, that is actually a pretty scary part if you think about it. And then the flip side, when Pat Morita, you know, rest in peace, did the same thing in the second movie. You know, how do people react to you?
How do people react to who?
Was that clear? I'm sorry, I was asking Mr. Cobra. How do people react to you and your character?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. I thought it was a dual question. But, most people, and it's kind of interesting that society reacts this way. They have such a good time with the sweep the leg and, you know, a problem with that, and no mercy, and, you know, all this dark stuff that this guy, you know, and he just emulates Lucifer throughout the whole movie. You know, and what's interesting is that society doesn't deem it really negative. They have a good time with it. whoever comes up to you in a restaurant or whatever, they, you know, someone screams out if I'm walking the streets of New York or something, and they scream "sweep the leg" with no mercy. It's always done humorously, you know. And last night I'm walking around outside, and I just went out there and had a little cigar and walked the streets, try to find some open spaces. You couldn't. So on the way back, people screaming "no mercy, sweep the leg," but it's done with charm and enjoy. You know, they enjoy it. And yet, in the movie, there were very negative implications. You know, wiping the blood from Johnny's nose. I mean, it was just, the guy is a bully. The guy is a beast. He's not somebody you want to have over your house for dinner. You know? And yet, society reacts, all the fans react humorously. Like, this is funny. Sweep the leg. You know, no mercy. You know. So to answer your question, it's positive. It's fun. It's turned into be fun, articulate, written dialogue that's turned around. Instead of being, it's pop culture. Instead of being, sweep the leg, you know, it's, hey, sweep the leg.
You guys are going to be here tomorrow for at the table for more signings.
Yep, we're gonna actually probably go back to the table at 6:15 for the last stretch.
But,
So if anyone wants to come down or over, I don't know where we are. They just walk back the back way.
But
And then we'll be here tomorrow as well.
But yeah, thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.